Important international conventions on environment we have already seen in table form at the end of class number 1, and then we also saw them in a little bit detailed manner. Now what we will see is those conventions which are important for exam because they were in news, like 1979 Convention on Migratory Species, also called as Bonn Convention, signed in 1979, came into force in 1983, and India also signed it in 1983. First convention held in Bonn, Germany in 1985, and in 2020 its 13th Conference of Party was hosted by India at Gandhinagar in Gujarat. UNEP gives its secretariat service, but the headquarters is in Bonn, Germany. Headquarters of UNEP is in Nairobi, Kenya, but the headquarters of CMS is in Bonn, Germany. Now regarding the 13th Conference of Party that was hosted by India. It happened in Gandhinagar in Gujarat. The logo was kolam. Kolam is basically rangoli or South Indian art made on the floor. Mascot was GB. GB is Great Indian Bustard, which we had discussed on page number 32. The theme, sometimes UPSC does ask the themes. The theme of this conference of party was migratory species connect the planet and we welcome them home. In this conference, 10 new species were added, 7 in Appendix 1 and 3 in Appendix 2. Appendix 1 means species which are threatened with extinction, and Appendix 2 means species that will benefit if they are saved. Right, so in Appendix 1, 7 species were added, and some of them are Asian elephant, jaguar, Great Indian bustard, and Bengal florican, also called as Bengal bustard. Another thing that was in news was countermeasure. So countermeasure is Japan and UNEP's initiative to study about the plastic pollution in rivers of Asia, including India. See, migratory species, most of the migratory species are birds. Think like this, we have included Asian elephant in it, but Asian elephant will not migrate from India to Africa, right? Most of the migration is done by the birds, and globally there is a pattern in which birds migrate. There are mainly 8 pathways along which birds usually migrate, right? In one of those pathways passes through India. That is the Central Asian pathway. So birds will originate from Russia and they will travel to India and then back. Like this in East Asia. In the East Asia like Japan and South Korea, they will originate and go to Australia and then come back. Like this. So in 2018, Ministry of Environment launched National Action Plan for Conservation of Migratory Birds. Its focus is on birds using Central Asian flyway. The 1992 Convention on Biological Diversity has its secretariat in Montreal, Canada. Its three main goals are to conserve the biodiversity, to use its components, and to share the benefits arising from the use of those components. It was followed by certain protocols like 2000 Cartagena Protocol for Biosafety. It is mainly related to the GM crops. Suppose GM crops are to be transferred from one country to another country, so there should be some advanced informed agreement between them that this country knows that yes, certain GM crops are to be imported. A proper procedure has to be followed. That is about this Cartagena protocol. Now in case these GM crops cause some damage to the local environment or local varieties, then who will pay the damages and how much will it be? So there has to be some liability, and what procedure will be followed to fix the liability, that was given by the 2010 Nagoya Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol. Right. So please remember this Nagoya Kuala Lumpur Supplementary Protocol is not a supplementary of Nagoya Protocol. It is a supplementary of Cartagena Protocol. The 2010 Nagoya Protocol is about how the benefits should be shared. For example, This is one local community which has certain traditional knowledge and grows some herbs which are used to treat a particular disease. Now this company comes to know about it, and this company will get the knowledge, traditional knowledge, or the herbs, the small plants from the community, and make the products and sell in the market. So whatever profit this company will earn, a part of that profit should be shared with this local community. That is about the fair and equitable sharing of benefits as given in the Nagoya Protocol. However, UPSC generally does not go into such details. For example, in 2015 it simply asked which convention is related to ozone depleting substances. The Montreal Protocol. Similarly, Rio Plus 20 conference is about was also known as UN Conference on Sustainable Development. At the end of class 1, we studied that in 1987 Montreal Protocol was brought to phase out halogenated hydrocarbons which use bromine and chlorine, because bromine and chlorine destroy the ozone layer. So they were to be replaced by hydrofluorocarbons, because fluorine does not destroy ozone layer. But the problem is that hydrofluorocarbons, though they are not destroying the ozone, but their global warming potential is 12,000 to 14,000 times more. Therefore, a lot of global warming happened due to HFCs. Now, in 2016, by Kigali Amendment to the Montreal Protocol, the world has decided that we will slowly reduce the use of HFCs also. All that we had already studied at the end of class number 1. Now the news is that India has ratified the Kigali Amendment. So this PIB article, some important point it gives, which I have noted down here, that India signed Montreal Protocol in 1992 and India has timely met all its targets. Now under the Kigali Amendment, our target is to reduce hydrofluorocarbons by 10% by 2032, 20% by in the next 5 years, 30% in the next 5 years, and totally by 85% by 2047, right, over a base of 2024 that I had already told at the end of class number 1. We had already covered wetlands on page number 26. Now there are two news related to wetlands. One is government has set up Wetland Conservation and Management Center under Center for Sustainable Coastal Management. It will be under Ministry of Environment. Now in this PIB article it is given that 4.6% of India's land area is under wetlands and India has 42 Ramsar sites. However, after that 4 new Ramsar sites were added. So right now India has 46 Ramsar sites. The latest additions are Thol and Vadhwana from Gujarat and Sultanpur and Bindabas from Haryana. These two, Sultanpur and Bindabas, are the first Ramsar sites of Haryana. Before this, Haryana never had any Ramsar site. Out of these 4, Sultanpur is natural. Other than Sultanpur, all other 3 are man-made or artificial. Chipko movement is basically protest by people against felling of trees. In 1973, in Uttarakhand's Chamoli district, in Rainy village, some contractors were cutting down some trees, but people protested against it. Some famous personalities who led the protest were Sundarlal Bahuguna and Gaura Devi. Ultimately, in 1980, government imposed a ban on felling of trees. It is said that this protest was inspired by the 1730 incident in which in Jodhpur, Raja Abhay Singh's people were cutting down some trees, but some people of Bishnoi community, they clung to the trees to protect them, to protect the khejri trees. But the people of this Raja Abhay Singh, they killed many people to cut down the khejri trees. When the king came to know about it, he ordered that there will be no felling of trees in that area. So every tree has a particular capacity to generate the new leaves and branches. In that year, if you consume only that much, then it's good. But suppose you consume more than what the tree is producing in a particular year, then after some years the tree will die. Same is a concept with our earth. Our earth has certain biocapacity. Now that is, in a year certain amount of resources our earth will generate. Now in that particular year if you consume more than that, then like this tree our earth will also die. So with this concept in mind, Global Footprint Network since 2006, it calculates Earth Overshoot Day. That is, from 1st of January, it calculates how much resources humans are consuming. Now it says that, like in this year 2021, it calculated that by 29th of July, humans have consumed all those resources, the same quantity of resources that our earth will generate in the entire year, right? So 29 July was the earth overshoot day in the last year, so it will change every year. Some of the recent initiatives about earth overshoot day that were in news are hashtag move the date and 100 days of possibility. Earth Day is celebrated on 22nd April and Environment Day on 5th of June. Earth Hour, it is coordinated by WWF since 2007. Here, in the last Saturday of March, for 1 hour in the night, people switch off their electricity, they switch off their lights to spread awareness about saving the planet. This was also asked by UPSC in 2014, but the name of the organization was given as UNEP and UNESCO, which is wrong. So statement 1 is wrong and 2 and 3 are correct. Doomsday Clock. So Doomsday Clock basically shows how much time humanity has left for before a global catastrophe happens. Now this global catastrophe is man-made. That is, humans are causing climate change. Humans may cause nuclear war, right? So how much time humans have left for a man-made global catastrophe, that is maintained by the Doomsday Clock by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists since 1947. Nature provides us with some services. If those services are not there, then we will not be able to survive. For example, there are some provisioning services by the nature. Nature provides us with fruits and vegetables and water, right? It also regulates the climate. If the climate is not in a proper range, then we will not be able to survive. Supporting services. Think like this: if life is existing but there are limited resources, if we keep on using the resources, then life will end. So there needs to be recycling of the nutrients. So this is an example of supporting services which supports the existing life. Then cultural, like for recreational activities, you go to park, you go to jungle, go for camping. All these are recreational activities or cultural services provided by the nature to us. In 2011 and 12, similar question was asked by UPSC. In 2011, UPSC asked, biodiversity forms the basis of human existence. In which of the ways? So it is basically asking for the ecosystem services provided by the nature. If the soil was not formed, if the soil is not formed, where will you grow your crops? What will you eat? So soil formation is necessary for human existence. Similarly, prevention of soil erosion. If soil gets eroded, no food, no oxygen. Recycling of waste, that is nutrient recycling. Fourth, pollination of crops. If crops are not pollinated, then new food will not come. Pollination of crops we will discuss on page number 72. So all these four are correct. Now if in 2011 you have studied about these things, then you would have been able to answer the 2012 question also, which was about the supporting services of the ecosystem. Supporting service we studied, it is about the nutrient recycling and oxygen production, right? So here it is given nutrient recycling, crop pollination, all these are supporting services. That, see, plants are there, this is one plant, this is another plant, but you need to pollinate them. right? You need to recycle the nutrients. All these are supporting services. We will see about the pollination later on. We cannot give payment to the nature for the services it is providing to us, but we can certainly give payment to people who are protecting the nature. This is called as payment for ecosystem services. For example, there is a city here at the foothills of a mountain. Now this city, there will be a municipality here. Now that municipality will be taking up the water from the river that is coming from the mountain or from the groundwater. Now this municipality will supply that water to the people of the city. Now imagine that on this mountain there is a small village, and those people are cutting the trees or grazing their animals for their own use. So slowly there will be deforestation. Once there is deforestation, the water level in the river will fall down and the groundwater level will also fall down. Then the municipality will not be able to use the water, right? So this municipality should give some payment to the people living in this village so that they do not allow the deforestation there. People will not do deforestation and they will protect anyone who does deforestation here. So people are protecting the ecosystem, and that ecosystem will supply water to the city down there, right? So this is called as payment for ecosystem services. It is actually a proper example. It's a proper mechanism. For example, in 2010, in Himachal Pradesh Palampur Municipal Corporation, it signed an agreement with the people of the mountain, and municipality is giving payment to the people there. It is also done at some bigger scale. For example, ecological fiscal transfer. So what happens is, so this is the central government and these are state governments. Now central government will see that which state government is protecting the environment more. Suppose this particular state government is protecting the environment more, and when environment is protected, then the ecosystem services given by the environment will be enjoyed by everyone. So central government should give some more payment to this state because it is protecting the nature. So this is called as ecological fiscal transfer. For example, the 14th Finance Commission gave 7.5% weightage to forest cover, and 15th Finance Commission has given 10% weightage to forest and ecology. This money can also be given to municipalities. For example, in 1990s, Brazil started giving money to municipalities because municipalities would be protecting some land area as forest or some protected area, right? So that since the municipality are not able to use this land, therefore the government would be giving some compensation to the municipalities. Ecosystem accounting. See, car is an asset. You use this asset for your benefit of comfortably going from one place to another. Similarly, forest is also an asset. You use this asset to get clean air and clean water, right? So now you need to account for it, that how much forest do you have. Now in that forest, what is the quality of the soil? How much water is that soil filtering and recharging the groundwater? How clean is that water? Are people getting benefit of it? How much of this clean water are people able to utilize? So you can keep a record of all these things, right? You can measure it either in the monetary terms or in the physical terms. This is called as natural capital. It is a natural capital and you are accounting for this natural capital, right? Just like in economy page number 11, when we read about the nominal and real GDP, we took an example where a country is producing 5 scooters in a year. So either you can say that we are producing 5 scooters, so you can say that our country has 5 lakh hectares of forest area, or you can give it a monetary term like 5 lakh rupees GDP. You can say that the value of the air and water that is coming from this forest is this much lakh rupees, right? So natural capital accounting, you are accounting for the natural capital and the benefits you are getting from it. Why is it important? Because all your economic activities are based on the natural goods. Think like this: any industry you can think of, where does it get its material from? Do our industries import material from Mars or Venus? We import our material, everything from the earth itself. That is, everything is actually a natural capital of the earth. So by measuring the natural capital, it is necessary, otherwise our economic activities can also suffer in the long term. Some initiatives related to natural capital accounting are: just remember the name of the organization. For example, UPSC can ask, system of environmental economic accounting is given by whom? It is given by United Nations. It basically gives a framework that how exactly can you calculate the natural capital and its services. Now the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation is using this framework to give out a report about India's natural capital. The name of that report is NV Stats. WAVES initiative is of World Bank, that is Wealth Accounting and Valuation of Ecosystem Services. IUCN has an initiative called Blue Natural Capital Financing Facility. Blue natural capital is the oceans or the water. So any project which will help in restoration or conservation of our blue natural capital, for that there is a financing facility. It's an initiative of IUCN. Another important thing is NCAVES, that is Natural Capital Accounting and Valuation of the Ecosystem Services. It is initiative of Europe, UNEP, UN Stats Division and Convention on Biological Diversity. The funding for this program comes from European Union. NCAVES program is for 5 countries. Remember the name of BRICS countries? In that BRICS countries, replace Russia with Mexico. Then it will be the 5 countries for NCAVES program. In India, it is obviously taken up by the MOSPI, Ministry of Statistics. Gross Domestic Product, GDP. It is a monetary value of the economic activities. Similarly, gross environment product is the monetary value of the ecosystem services in a country in a given area. You can also calculate it in a biophysical form, like I gave the example of area of a forest. Uttarakhand government has announced that it will measure Uttarakhand's gross environment product. Now there can be some overlap between GEP and GDP. For example, consider that this is one area. It is a very big area in which some fruits are being grown. Now these fruits, you will sell them in the market and hence India's GDP will increase, right? But this area is also providing some ecosystem services like clean air and clean water. So it will also add to the GEP. So there can be some overlap between GDP and GEP. Green GDP is a different concept. See, what green GDP says is, like in economy page number 12, we studied about GDP. We said that when you are doing all the economic activities and adding to India's GDP, in that process you must be using some machines. And when you are using the machines, their value will get depreciated. So from GDP, when you reduce the depreciation, you will get NDP. Similarly, to achieve this GDP, you must have damaged some environment. Some environmental damage must have happened. So from this GDP, if you subtract the value of those biodiversity losses, then it will be called as green GDP. Some related concepts are gross domestic happiness. It is a concept originated by Bhutan, where it says that non-economic well-being is also important, right? It's not just about the money. Happy Planet Index is brought by New Economics Foundation, which is a British think tank. So a related concept is about CAMPA. UPSC has already asked about CAMPA in 2019 also. It's a very important concept. CAMPA is mainly about compensatory afforestation. Assume that company A is going to acquire a forest area, and due to this, ecosystem services will not be provided to the future generations. So a monetary value will be calculated and that money will be deposited by company A in a fund. From that fund is called as compensatory afforestation fund. From that, 10% money will go to the national government and 90% money will go to the state government. Now state forest department will use this money to give it to company B which is going to do afforestation on a barren piece of land. Okay, so that's the concept about compensatory afforestation. An alternative to compensatory afforestation has been proposed as green credit scheme. So this scheme basically says that we should not wait for this whole process. Rather, we should allow companies like Company B to grow forest on barren land and maintain it. Later on in the future, when any company goes for this deforestation and deposits the money, then the state government will use that money to compensate Company B for all the work it has done over the years to grow the forest, and then obviously Company B will be happy and this land will be transferred to the state government. So Company B has got the money for providing its services to grow the forest. Now this green credit scheme has been proposed by Forest Advisory Committee. Forest Advisory Committee is a statutory committee under Forest Conservation Act 1980. It comes under Ministry of Environment. It has both bureaucrats as well as experts. It basically advises the ministry on issues related to forest clearances or diversion of forest land. Now 2019 question, that compensatory afforestation planning committee, so authority, basically CAMPA is the authority which is going to manage your CAMPA funds. So it exists at both the national and the state level. Yes, that is correct. And people's participation is mandatory in the afforestation program. No, that's not true. So brief background why this question was asked. So basically in 2001, Supreme Court ordered the establishment of CAMPA, this authority, and in 2006 the government of India formed the fund where this CAMPA will be made, right? So basically Supreme Court ordered the establishment and it was established actually in the year 2006. But due to some court cases, the money that was deposited in the funds was not released. So from 2006 to 2016, for the next 10 years, money was being deposited in this account, but it could not be really used because of some court cases. In 2016, Supreme Court said that now the government can use this money, and government brought out this act, Compensatory Afforestation Fund Act 2016, and in the year 2018, the rules for this act were made and government released approximately 50,000 crore rupees for this scheme. So actually this money government has not given from its own pocket. All the money that was deposited for the last 10 years, all that was released in one go, and therefore people thought that wow, government is releasing so much money. So since the rules were framed in 2018 and so much money was released, therefore this question came in 2019. Another related concept is about the social cost of carbon, which was asked by UPSC in 2020. Social cost of carbon is a monetary value of the long-term damage done by 1 ton of CO2 emitted today. Suppose the government takes a policy decision that it is going to use more fossil fuels to generate electricity. It will be successful in generating electricity, but it will lead to climate change. For example, in the last 10 years, our climate has changed drastically. Extreme weather events have increased. Sea level has increased. It is a society which is paying for it. Because now there are more extreme weather events, there are more droughts, there are more floods, there are more flooding in the coastal areas. It is a society which is paying for it. So that is a social cost of carbon. Similarly, there is one more cost also. Suppose political parties take a decision that we are going to use the strategy of us versus them in the coming elections to win the elections. The party will definitely win the elections in India, but it will lead to social change. Over the period of 10 years, society has changed a lot, and today the society is paying for all the rift and distrust that is there in our society because of this decision. Pollination. So pollination is basically about the transfer of pollen grains from male to female part. Male part that is stamen, and the female part that is stigma or the pistil. So in a part, you must have studied in biology in school that different parts of the flower are, there are sepal, petals, this filament, and at the top of filament there is anther. So filament and anther are part of the stamen, that is the male part. Similarly, in the female part there is pistil, that is ovary, then style, and then stigma. So for fertilization, that is for pollination, basically the pollen grains need to go from stamen to stigma, right? So this can happen within the flower. It can happen from one flower of a plant to another flower of the same plant, right? So if this is happening within one particular plant, individual plant, then it is called as self-pollination. Or if it is happening from one plant to another, pollen grains from this stamen are traveling to the stigma of another plant, then that is called as cross-pollination. Please mind that this cross-pollination must happen only between the plants of the same species. Right? Pollination happens between the plants of same species. Both these plants should be of the same species. Now this cross-pollination, how exactly will the stamen, these anther transfer from one plant to another? It can be through various means. It can be through air, water, any insect, any fly, butterfly, anything. Think like this, the petals of a flower are so light, they can almost float in the air. And these small anther, they are even more light. So they can easily go from one place to another. Not on themselves, but through some medium. For example, if a bee sits on a flower, right, then what will happen that automatically, if it is sitting on a flower, some pollen grains will get attached to the body of the bee. Now when this bee goes to another flower on another plant or another flower of the same plant, then those pollen will fall down from its body into the stigma of this flower. So pollination will happen. So this is what UPSC asked in 2012, that which of these are the pollinating agents. So any of these things which sits on the trees or flowers or plants, it will be a pollinating agent. So bat, bee, bird, all of them are pollinating agents. 2017 question. If there is a drastic fall in the population of butterflies in an area, then what will happen? Option number 1 says pollination could be adversely affected. Butterflies does the pollination. If there are no butterflies, then pollination will fall down, right? There will be less pollination. So 1 is correct. Third says that it could lead to falling population of wasp, spider and birds. See, wasp, spider, birds and butterflies are all part of the food web, right? Some birds eat butterflies, right? Some spiders could be eating them. So the thing here is that if butterflies are not there, then the whole food web will be disturbed. So third can also be correct. So 1 and 3 are correct. Second is wrong, because second says that there could be a drastic increase in fungal infections. Do you think butterflies would be curing the fungal infections? No. Fungus is a disease, right? The fungus will cause a disease in some plants. Are butterflies going to treat that? No. So it won't really have a big impact on the fungal infections. So 2 is wrong, 1 and 3 are correct. So this is the 6th and final class of environment. As always, we have put the whole PDF of the entire class on the website, and some portion of that PDF we have explained here right now on YouTube, and the remaining portion has been explained as a part of our paid course.